January the 18th. It is 5:01 p.m. and I am reaching out to you today because, of course, I had an experience this morning and I would have actually recorded it, but I had to get to work. So that's why I waited until this very moment. It was a very special experience. All my experiences are unique and special. Let me just say, I love each and every one of them, but some are just, they're just flat out amazing. And this was one of them because I believe that I connected with that comet that's out there. So let me get into the experience first. And as I go through the experience, because I've already spoken with my mother about it, I will tell you the different theories as to why I may have seen what I saw. Also, as always, I will go through and for those of you who are struggling or wish to have experiences, I will let you know what my process is, and maybe, just maybe, that will help you. So around 6 o'clock in the morning this morning, this is when it happened. No special sounds, no storm sounds, no binaural beats, nothing like that. I may have had talk on in the background and had it really low, so I could barely hear it at all. I was just going to get some rest because I had been up overnight just working on my various projects that I work on in the middle of the night. And so I was just gonna, just rest for a little while. Part of me was thinking it would be nice to have an experience. I'm always open to it. But if an experience doesn't happen, I'm not sitting there going, oh my gosh, I'm so disappointed. That is not happening. I'm just closing my eyes, I'm resting. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, it would be nice. It would be interesting to see where I would go. Now, before this experience happened, there are times I usually will do one of two things. I will either put the option of, where we end up going, I will give that option to my expanded self. I will say, you know what, you got this. You're in control. You do your thing. We will go where you want to go. Or, I will, have a certain desire where I want to go. There'll be a point, a place where I want to go to. Now, for those of you who have been listening to my last few experiences, you know that I've mentioned this green comet. And it's interesting because I think the first time I focused on it, I didn't end up going to that. That was something completely different ended up happening. I believe that was when I went to another reality and saw my mother. So instead of going to see the green comet, I went to see my mother because I focused on the love that I have for my mom. Now, I have to tell you that in the last couple of days, I've just kind of let it fade a little bit. I hadn't really been thinking about it much. I know that I wanted to try to connect with the green comet, whatever that means, but I didn't have it really center in my mind. And again, I think this is another point, and this is something that I've gone over before, but I think it can't be said enough. Like, I wasn't focused. I wasn't thinking, okay, I've got to get there. I've got to do this. This had already faded in my mind. I thought this would be interesting to do this, but I wasn't I wasn't desperate about it. I was just like, okay, yeah, cool if it happens. If it doesn't happen, then, maybe I'll go someplace else. So I wasn't really thinking about it. And so I was laying on my right side. And when I hit that middle space, the sweet spot, that's what I call it, the space between being asleep and awake, it was like I was starting to go. At first, it's interesting. I'm having to think about this for a second because what I remember with the motion, and I've talked about the motion before, whether I'm turning different directions or I'm just moving forward. First, I remember when I hit that middle space, that sweet spot, I just went, okay, here we go. Now, I did this early on in my experiences. I would say, oh gosh, here we go again. I would say that in my mind when it was coming. And the way I kind of explained it was I knew it was coming. It was like a wave, as if you were in the ocean and you could see this huge wave coming towards you and you know it was going to hit you. And so that's what it kind of feels like when I get into that middle space. So I knew it was coming and I was like, okay, here we go. And so I just take off. I launched off, rocketed off. And for those of you who have watched the original Star Trek, this is the only thing. I don't know. I wish I could put this sound effect on the actual video, but I don't think I can. I don't think you can just, I don't think I can just grab the sound effect. But the original Star Trek, the original one, not the ones that came after, not the movies or whatever, but in the original one, when the Enterprise would go to warp speed, you'd hear the engine making this sound. And I can't make this sound, but that's the sound I could hear. I could hear that sound. It was like as I was going faster, the sound was building faster and faster through the darkness. And so I'm going towards this point, and then I start to slow down, guys. And so I slowed down and I was still in darkness. Now, a few things happened at this point that were actually quite interesting. One of the things was I felt like someone, and I couldn't see a hand or whatever like that. I felt like someone was putting something over my face, like a mask, or think either like goggles or some sort of filter or something like that. They were putting it over my face. That was the one thing. I wasn't nervous about it. I was just relaxed in the darkness. What I noticed after this was it was like, I've talked about the void before, right? The void, when I'm in it, just feels like it's expansive, it's infinite. But this time I was in darkness, but as I was trying to explain it to my mother, it was a different kind of darkness. And she said something that totally made sense to me. She said, it sounds like there was a pocket of the void. Think pocket dimension, think like a little space, or even think like as if a section of the void was kind of just put off, and it was sort of there for me to be able to connect with perhaps this being. Now, at the time, I wasn't thinking about that. I was just looking around. And what else is interesting in this, I could hear this sound when an astronaut is in space, or when someone is scuba diving, you will hear the breathing apparatus. I could hear that, and that was after this mask, this sense that I had a mask put over me. So I could hear this breathing apparatus, right? And I was like, okay, I don't know exactly where that's coming from. I got the sense almost like I may have been an astronaut for a moment. And I remember thinking to myself, in a really excited way, I was thinking, well, maybe I'm in the solar system, maybe there's planets around. So I started moving around in this darkness that seemed, like I said, I don't want you to get the sense that I was in a dark room. It was just darkness, but it seemed to be smaller and more intimate in a way, and the substance of it was different. That's all I can really tell you. It felt different than the void that I normally go into that just seems to go on forever. So I'm turning around and I'm looking for a planet or whatever I can see. And at some point, guys, I see this face. Now, this is a face of an old man. And the first thing I thought to myself was stoic. And that's what I told my mom. And this seemed to click to her when I said stoic. I mean, I think one of the first things I said was, this man's face had a tinge, a green tinge to it. It was glowing and it was green, and I could see it in the darkness. It was a face, and it looked stoic. It looked so calm. It really did. This face just looked so calm, and it was just staring at me. And at some point, this man, who I think he was very sizable, at least that was what my perception was. And at this point, we're thinking, my mom and I are thinking, this is more than likely the essence of what the comet is. Like, if you think, and think about this for a second, that the planets, the stars, all of these things, comets, anything you can think of, they have a life force to them. I talked about space being the void, but when we see space, we see it as sort of its shell. Like, when you look at a body, you see someone's shell. You're not able to necessarily see the spirit being that dwells inside. And it's the same thing with these things. You're seeing a shell, but there is a deeper part to it, a deeper element to it. And I believe that's what I was seeing with this being. It was the green comet in its purest essence. That's what I believe. And as I was speaking to my mom, I believe that's what she believed as well. I mean, I think that's what we really kind of agreed on. And so this being with the green glow takes my hands, just took my hand, and then brought my hands to its chest. Now, I want to refer to it as it, because I can't really say, I don't want to assign a gender to this. I mean, I perceived it as being an older male, but I don't think it has a gender, really. When it put my hand against its chest, it just held it there. Now, it was interesting because when I was speaking to my mom about this, my mom was like, so what did you feel when you touched its chest, when you connected with the comet? And I told her, and this is just being really real with you guys. I'm always real with you, and I'm always going to be honest with you with the way that I feel. There was no huge feeling welling up inside of me. I didn't feel all this love and all this, wonderful stuff coming up inside of me. There was a calm. My mom said stillness. So I'm going to go with stillness as well. There was a stillness and a calm that was unbelievable. It was extraordinary because I didn't have all these feelings welling up inside, but oh man, it was just amazing. Some experiences, I think, go beyond words, and the only thing I can really say is stillness, calm. That's what I felt. And at some point, I think I got kind of scared because I let go. And I remember the moment I let go, that was it. We had our connection. I let go of the hand, and then I was in another place. Now, the next things that happened, they happened kind of quickly. I remember I was in this place where the doors were at least 30 feet high. And I remember I ran up, I jumped into the air, I started gliding, I was flying. So in whatever reality I ended up in after this pocket void place, I was able to fly up, and then I pushed the door open with my hands because that seemed to be the only way to do it. And then I remember I went into a place, and I remember thinking to myself, Costco. And the reason why I thought Costco was because this was more of a warehouse feeling. There were receiving doors everywhere, and it was really big. And at some point, I'd gotten outside. I remember there was one door that was kind of open. I was able to slip outside. And this place was kind of grungy. I remember that part. It was grungy a little bit. That was what I remember. And once I got outside, things weren't that light outside. It was kind of still dark. I could kind of see structures, but everything seemed grungy and sort of old. And I remember I jumped straight up into the air and I started flying, but I was having a very difficult time flying, guys. Not sure why that was, but shortly after this, I returned to my body. So that was the connection that I had with the green comet. It's so funny because I think to myself sometimes, I wonder if people are going to be disappointed because, maybe people expect there to be all these fireworks and, oh my gosh, I felt this. And there are times when I feel the fireworks. I feel this emotion welling up inside of me and I can't contain it. But this time, guys, pure calm, pure stillness. It's so interesting to me because, the most significant experiences I have are like this. And throughout the day, it just started to hit me what had occurred. And, gradually I just thought about that moment over and over again, the moment of connecting with this being and thinking about how our universe is literally alive. Thank you so much for coming on this journey with me. And until next time, take care.